Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, we've got not one but two real treats for you today. Chris Tarr is on the show, not really as a co-host, but as a guest. He's going to be showing us some pictures of what he's doing today, installing some antennas for an FM translator. That's coming up, and Scott Fybush is with us. Scott has an amazing announcement at the end of the show. Don't fast forward, watch the whole show. And he's also got some great information about an FM radio station that is in way upstate New York. That's pretty interesting. Plus information on turning in AM licenses, EAS, and station brokerage. It's all coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionic Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. By Nautel. Worry-free transmission you can count on with outstanding control, reliability, efficiencies, and Nautel's unmatched 24/7 customer support. Online at nautel.com. And by Max Connect Wireless. Prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, our 634th episode, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to that light bulb at the top of the tower. I'm Kirk Harnack here in the Nashville studios of the Telos Alliance and the Nashville studios for This Week in Radio Tech. And it's like so much of the country, bad weather last night, more bad weather coming through. Tornado watches have been in effect here and there, and more tonight and tomorrow. So it's been exciting. That's okay. I got plenty of work to do right here at the desk. Now, someone who's not at his desk and joining us by the magic of telephony, it's Chris Tarr. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey there, Kirk. Well, thank you for that picture. That is fantastic. Yeah. So, anyway, I'm out in the field, putting up a new translator and antenna in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, which is just outside of Madison. So that's where I've been today in the kind of gray, sort of drizzly cold. But, it's always fun being out in the field getting stuff done. So having a good day.
Chris, I understand that you can't stay with us for a long time, and Scott Fybush will be arriving, but he's not in front of his camera just yet. Why don't we go ahead and look at the pictures from what you're doing today, and I'll tell you which one's up, and you can tell us about it, okay?
Yeah, I can see you, so I should be able to see what's up.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I see some antennas. What's this?
Yeah, those are Nikon BKG, I believe 77 antenna bays. There's two of them, and they're on the ground getting ready to get tied up and rigged up and pulled up the side of the tower. That was earlier this morning.
Tell me what kind of service is for. Low power, translator, backup, what?
Translator. It's 250 watts at 310 feet.
Okay.
And it's a translator for our station in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin.
For those who don't know, these two individual antenna bays probably have some kind of a power splitter. You send the power, the RF, up the tower through a single coax, and yet we have two bays here. Tell us how that works.
Fighter. It is sitting in the back of the truck there. Not out in plain view, but there is a splitter that goes between the two, and you have to measure the distance between the bays. It's obviously spaced by wavelength. So I think this one is 9.4 feet. Those two bays will be 9.4 feet apart, and then there's a little combiner. The coax goes into the combiner, and then there's two lines that come out, one to each bay.
And so just pretend we're talking to some novices here. Why two bays instead of one or instead of 10?
What's that?
Yeah, why would you use a 2-bay antenna instead of a 1-bay antenna or a 10-bay antenna?
Oh, gotcha.
What's the magic of two bays?
There's and every engineer will give you a different answer. There's kind of black magic about it. But obviously, the more bays or not obviously, because it may not be obvious, but the more bays you use, the more gain comes off of the antenna system. So the less power you need to put into the system. Now, there are trade-offs here and there with, the number of bays and the wavelength spacing. You can go, full wavelength, half wavelength. I've had, 0.8 wavelengths. So, basically you think about it, the more bays you have, the more spread out the beam is coming off the tower. Um, and there's more gain, so there's less power out of the transmitter. Then the other way around with a single bay, it's a very narrow beam coming off the tower, and you need a lot more power because one bay is a negative gain. So you have to put more power into it because there's a loss involved with the one bay. So two bay is about unity gain. Typically, with this kind of antenna, two bays, what you put in is what you're going to get out.
Cool. Let's see. By the way, Scott Fybush is connected, so we'll be going to Scott here shortly. We're going to get a couple more pictures from Chris here. Chris, I want to ask you one more thing. These antenna bays, if you want to pop, oh, there they are up there on the tower. You said there's a power divider. Is the power divider nothing more than a T, or is it a proper tuned power divider that's got some length to it of some kind?
This one is actually a tuned one, so it looks basically like a canister with, a port on the bottom and then two ports on the top.
Okay,
so
probably these bays, each bay is probably a 50 ohm bay. In other words, each bay could be a termination to the line itself without the other bay if something went wrong with one of them. Okay.
Yeah, especially with NICOM, these are broadband antennas, so they basically can be operated either ways. You can add the power divider is more of a basic, splitting the power among the bays, but they're not frequency dependent.
Right.
So that would be the situation there. Now you're looking on the top of the tower. Now you can see it's pretty loaded up. There's a full power FM, and then we're the third translator on the tower. So, the main FM's on the top, and then as you work your way down, there are the translator antennas.
Gotcha. And I see, it looks like two tower climbers on the antenna. What frequency are they tuned to?
The tower climbers, they're resident right now at about 99.5, which is the antenna they're looking
at. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Oh, okay. We have a building entrance here. What's that?
Yep. So, you always want to be a good guy when you're, leasing space and putting in a port. You can see on the left side there, someone did it pretty poorly. And then you can see where I've got our new hole there, which is the bottom right, and we've got a boot that'll go over that. And that's the entrance, the coax entrance into the building.
And there's some nice big grounding bus bar there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have a grounding kit on there now, too. You'd see it. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten a picture yet of the line going in, but you'll see the line going in, and then there's off of that a grounding kit that goes to that bus bar.
And that's done on the outside of the building, and then you've got that green wire coming down from the bus bar. I guess what goes to the ground system that's around the tower?
Yep, exactly.
Cool. All right. What's next here?
And that's just a picture of the coax and the connector on the end of it, and kind of the ground kit hanging around there. And so that was before the line went into the building.
Gotcha. Good deal. Hey, no trespassing.
That's right. I pointed at the hard hat required sign while wearing my Max Connect baseball hat.
Well, good.
It's kind of my look of, I'm breaking the rules.
Well, awesome. Chris, I know you're in the middle of a field. Your connection's not that great, but you've done a great job getting these pictures to us. And so what do you have to do to finish this job up? When can you walk away and say, aha, we're on the air?
It's going to be probably another week. This was I wanted to get the antenna in and then, make sure that was okay. And now I just got to collect, the rack and the transmitter and, get all of that lined up. I'm having fiber put in for audio delivery and that sort of thing. So this is the first step. This is one that I have to have on the air by mid-April. It'll probably be, I'll have it done in, I'm sure, about a week or so. But I'll make sure to take pictures when it's done so that when we get together again, I can show you the finished product.
Nice. All right. Looking forward to it. Any video you can get would be great, but you have a good, safe time out there and cover your head up. We don't want nothing to happen to your noggin.
Well, that's what my Max Connect hat's for.
I'm not sure connecting is what you want to do with falling objects. That's up to you, bud.
Good point.
Okay. Chris Tarr reporting live from the field. Thank you very much, Chris. I really appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And now it's time to bring in Scott Fybush. He just came in off the road from a very interesting radio station. Is Scott there in a two-shot? Is he available?
Hello?
There he is. Hey.
How you doing, Kirk?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Good to actually be sitting at home after being in the car all day. My apologies to the New York State Troopers. I may have been going a smidge fast on the throughway, but don't tell anybody.
I'm glad you're... What... Have you ever done anything crazy in the radio business to get out of a speeding ticket?
There was one time I was coming back from a concert in Buffalo. I was still working in TV news at that point, and I was actually on the air as a reporter. So some of the troopers knew me. It was like 1 a.m, and I was pulling back into Rochester. They pulled me over and took my license, looked at it, and said, "Nah, we're not going to call you in. Everybody would just get a good laugh out of it," and let me go. Now that I'm just on the radio and doing stuff behind the scenes, not so much anymore.
I got pulled over by a Kentucky State Trooper on my way to a rock station, I told the guy where I was going, and he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, if you'll get me my favorite Led Zeppelin song on, I'll let you go, but I'll be listening." So of course I got to the station, 20 minutes later, I ran in, and I wasn't on the air. I told the guy on the air, "Hey man, we got to play this song." I forget what it was. "We got to play this song, or else I'm getting a ticket." Gosh. Well, Scott, you've got some stories to tell us, topical news stories, as well as what you've been doing today, and I'm eager to hear all about it. First, Scott, maybe you're a little bit familiar with it. We're going to talk for just a minute about Nautel and the Nautel Users Group, the NUG meeting that is coming up in Las Vegas soon. And of course, I have dispensed with my notes. Let me see if I can bring my note up here that I sent off to the Suncast. Suncast, you're probably going to be able to bring this up if you haven't already. There we go. Yeah,
being there Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, yes, I'm going to be there too. I think I'm giving a short presentation, so you don't have to hear from me for too long. It'll be on the newfangled, virtualized and container stuff and how that relates to your Nautel transmitter. But you can join Nautel at the NAB show. It's going on April 16th through 19th. They got a free exhibit passcode right here, so you can just copy paste that passcode from Nautel LV7673, and then click on that register using this link and fill out the form. Put that passcode in, and you can get into the exhibits for free. You can also register for free for the NUG, the Radio Technology Forum, Sunday, April 16th, 8:30 in the morning, Las Vegas time. So that'd be 10:30 for me. It'd be 11:30. I mean, Scott will be wide awake at the Flamingo, Las Vegas. Registration's open. Register now. And you can click the little video on there to see what it's all about. But this is a great event. Even if you don't own a Nautel transmitter, this is a great learning event because there are all kinds of topics having to do with the care and feeding of transmitters, transmitter technology, antenna technology, and also HD technology. So that might be of interest to you as well. Basically, the things that Nautel does, they'll be talking about the technologies, and the Nautel Users Group is a great place to do that. So I encourage you to register for it. Go to nautel.com and register for the Nautel Users Group that's going on. All right, good deal. Scott, welcome in. Scott Fybush is with us. We've got a few topics to talk about. And first and foremost, I want to have some fun talking about what you've been up to today in a place I've never heard of. What's this little town that is almost not in the U.S.?
Beautiful Cape Vincent, New York. If you kind of follow the eastern shore of Lake Ontario up till where it merges into the St. Lawrence River, and on one side is Kingston, Ontario, Canada. And on the other side is this little town of Cape Vincent, New York. It's in the Thousand Islands area. It is really beautiful in the summer. Today, I believe, is the 2nd of March. It was at least not as snowy as it could have been. We'll say that for it. But there is a little Class A radio station up there that was built, I think it's been on the air for about 20 years or so. It went on the air initially as part of a two-nation simulcast based out of Watertown, which is a larger city about a half hour away, and it was The Border. And they had 106.7 The Border, which is still in Watertown, 102.7 The Border serving Kingston. It then ended up being leased out to one of the big Canadian broadcasters, Rogers, which runs its KISS format, or ran its KISS format on there up until yesterday. And yesterday, the plug got pulled on that, and there is a new ownership group that is actually Canadian, but is now allowed to buy radio stations in the U.S., and they began operating it pending an ownership transfer yesterday. And they needed somebody in the U.S. Who could actually legally work in the U.S. to help them install all their stuff and get connected. And those are the kind of phone calls somebody calls me up and says, "Hey, I got a weird project for you." I'm like, "How weird?" Like, okay, this meets the minimum weirdness to get me interested in making a 3-hour drive up there and playing radio with you guys. And so it's been fun because they are great Canadian broadcasters. The guy who runs it is actually a second generation Canadian broadcaster. He's kind of like me in that he's got his fingers in a whole bunch of things. He's on the air. He does a talk show on CFRB, the big talk station in Toronto. And then he and his partners own this cluster of stations across small town Ontario. They brought radio to all these communities, these little communities of a few thousand people in Ontario that never had local radio, and they figured out how to merge a little bit of local content and some local news and a digital web presence, and then centrally programmed music and personalities, and they made a nice little chain of these stations. And he had the opportunity to buy this station in the U.S., and I don't even know exactly what he's going to do with it yet. He's got a stunt format on it right now, and nobody's even told me what the final format is going to be. I'm as in the dark as anybody on it.
We're going to talk about that format in just a minute. Yeah. I've got to encourage people to stay tuned. That's going to be pretty interesting. I'm confused about something. You mentioned while you were driving a couple hours ago, you mentioned that this station, this U.S. station, is owned by some Canadian people. Mm-hmm. And you said the rules have changed. Yes. Tell me about the rule change that allows foreigners to own radio stations.
Mm-hmm. This goes back now, I think about 5 years or so. Everything's a blur since the start of the pandemic. Dates have no meaning, but I think it was about 5 years ago. And the FCC basically said, look, we will now allow up to 100% foreign ownership of stations, where I think previously the limit had been 35, 40, somewhere in there. With specific restrictions where it's got to be cleared literally by the State Department. They have to do an investigation, make sure that there's nothing untoward that's going to end up getting broadcast, and that the owners are reputable. But there are some examples of that out there now. I don't know if you know Ricky Lee, who does a lot of like the air automation stuff. He is a UK citizen, and he is half owner now of a bunch of stations stretching from northern New York down into the Carolinas, and has done very well with it. So this is another interesting example of that. And it's fun because I get the job of telling people who've never done U.S. broadcasting before, hey, here are some of the rules that you have to play by, that there's no manual to tell you you've got to do this. But see your EAS box, for instance. In Canada, they do have an EAS-like system. It uses those same Blue Sage receivers that we're so familiar with. Yeah. But those in Canada are all fed just by internet. There's a system kind of like our CAP system here that distributes data through the Canadian equivalent of the Weather Channel. It's called the Weather Network up there. And that's all they have. There's no over-the-air reception. So I had to explain to them, listen, we've got to resurrect this antique FM receiver that was over at the other studios that wasn't in use, and I got to reprogram it to change your primary stations, and you have to monitor weather radio. And don't worry, I'll just take care of all of this. Let me just tell you what it's going to cost to get it working. And so we've got that set up in there. They didn't know anything about that. They're going to have to learn a little bit about EAS tests. I did, thanks to our good friend Tom Ray, I got the primary station for one of them changed. It's part of a statewide NPR network. And I said, listen, Tom, you've got this with the primary that I got to listen to like 30 miles away. They've got another station right in this building. Do you care if I use that as my LP1 instead? He said, no, that's fine. I'll make the change for you. I said, that's awesome. I got the high-tech antenna all set up. This is a replica. Where is it? There we go. There's a replica of the high-tech antenna that I installed to pick up the transmitter 10 feet away. And I am pleased to report it's coming in S9 plus 20. So we're all good at that. I'm struggling a little more right now with getting NOAA weather radio up there, but the next trip up we'll get that fixed too.
Now, tell me real quick. You sent me a photo. Is this the right time to show the photo, or does it require more explanation?
We could put
later?
that up here. Yeah, this is.
I think Suncast may be ready to show that picture.
That's my baby that I was just working with today, and most of this I inherited from, I guess, several engineers who have worked on it. So the brand new pieces in that weren't there when I started with this is all that automation at the bottom. It's the automation from the Canadian guys, main and backup, and a file server. And as of today, there is now satellite internet installed in there, so they can pump files back and forth into it. Those old Marty STLs that are at the top of the rack will be going away because those point back towards the old studio in Watertown that I think had a Tello Zip-It or something that was connected to Canada. So that part will be going away. The EAS box just moved in there today.
Yeah.
If you look super closely above the not currently functioning Energionics, which I am hoping will magically turn into a Nautel GV something before long, if I get my wish. But
it either needs to be a Nautel or get a front panel for down lower.
Yeah, well, no, that what's keeping it on the air right now. There's an Acresso in there that's got it on the air.
Yeah,
but if you pan back up a little bit up in the top corner, you can just barely see the $10 RCA TV antenna that got picked up at Home Depot in Watertown earlier this morning to receive the other.
I kind of see it. Yep.
So we're going super high tech with a lot of this, but you know what? For now at least it gets the job done, and it'll get cleaned up, and we'll make it look a lot prettier, and hopefully get the building sealed up a little bit better, and ideally do a lot more of it in the summer than on, say, the 2nd of March.
That automation, am I wrong? It kind of looks like a Playout 1?
It is. You noticed. You noticed well. That's exactly what that is, and 2 instances of that right now. I just got the switcher to be able to set up to switch from one to the other, so that will go in there soon, and. Yeah,
there isn't a live local studio there. They program or they feed files to the Playout 1 via that internet connection, right?
That is the live local studio, such as it is. And I mean, these days it qualifies. I could plug a mic into it, I guess, if I had to. But they will be feeding files into that from somewhere in Canada, and that complies with all the FCC rules as they exist now. And I think eventually they may have something set up. But realistically, the market for this station is not in Cape Vincent, New York, which even in the summer has only a few thousand people. It's 100 and some thousand people across the river in Kingston, Ontario.
Well, actually, one of my transmitter sites in Greenwood, Mississippi, we had some difficulty with an STL shot, and we had to move our studio location out of a historic building and into a building that's not so historic. And we just decided, look, we no longer have a morning show. Let's just put the automation at the transmitter site. We had the transmitter site happens to be the head end for a wireless ISP. So they've got great internet there all the time. And so the automation is there. And I know other automations afford this as well, but Playout 1 does allow you to go live through an internet connection if you want to. It also allows voice tracking, like almost everybody does. But you could go live from about anywhere on the Playout 1 system. Well, that's pretty interesting.
The big limitation right now is just going to be bandwidth for them. Satellite internet isn't going to do a lot. I'm trying to talk them into at least putting Max Connect up there as a backup at some point.
So is it kind of rural? Is that why they can't get quick, wired internet?
Yeah, Spectrum is like a 3/4 of a mile down at the other end of the road, and it was too expensive for them to run fiber down. So we shall see. Right now it's satellite, and I don't even know, come to think of it, the public radio station that's back behind my rack, I didn't even look carefully at how that's fed, but I don't even know what's feeding them, honestly. Might be a satellite feed, could be an off-air pickup from somewhere. I was too busy
we're going to take a break here, Scott, real quick. And then when we come back, I want to hear more about this format. It's a little bit interesting. I don't know if it's a format. Well, you said they're stunting. So we'll see if they stick with this format or go with something else. Scott Fybush is with us. Chris Tarr kind of began the show showing what he's been doing today with some FM antennas and a translator. Our show is brought to you in part by Broadcast Bionics and the Bionics Studio This makes life so easy to be really involved with social media, getting the stuff on the air. You need to get on the air so many different ways. Broadcast Bionics can help you out. Let's hear from them. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Bionic Studio. The Bionic Studio brings all audience interaction to the fingertips of a production team in radio, TV, and podcast. Our workflow-led system is working 24/7 around the world for small broadcasters and national and international networks. Our telephony module, Bionic Talk Show, allows cost-effective centralization, remote operation, scalability, and resilience across an entire network of stations, but at the same time is used in single-studio self-op environments. Social media curation and activity is now considered a broadcast-critical part of programming. Bionic Social means the studio isn't overwhelmed with a wall of interaction from an ever-growing number of social platforms. We combine SMS, MMS, and email together with a speech-to-text service for listeners using smart speakers. We enable studio teams to curate, filter, and display all platforms in one place, and post text, images, and video content to multiple platforms in one operation. Effortless collection of video content with Bionic Director has helped position some of the world's most successful stations as leaders in viral content, generating appointments to listen and free marketing via retweets and shares. Bionic Contest enables end-to-end tracking of on-air competitions, live reads, and prizes. These could be on-air contests, automated SMS entry, or online. Anywhere, and Skype TX for Radio brings high-quality audio and video contribution into the studio with ease. No need for dedicated PCs to run different applications. Everything is controlled within the Bionic Studio UI, and incoming connections are visible to users along with all other platforms. Our codec integration enables connection, algorithm configuration, and directory to a wide range of IP and ISDN codecs. The Bionic Studio, a unique suite of products designed to enable your talent to work smarter.
What a suite of fantastic products from the Bionic Studio, from Broadcast Bionics. They are in the UK, but they certainly make their products available here in the US from a number of different dealers. So check them out at bionics.co.uk or bionic.radio. There's links in our show notes at the end of every show, so you can go click on them there. And Dan McQuillan, the founder of Broadcast Bionics, is going to be on an upcoming show. I'm not sure now whether it's going to be before an AB or after an AB, but Dan will be on with some really interesting news and technology that is it's great interest to me, so maybe it'll be of great interest to you as well. All right, thanks a lot, Broadcast Bionics, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack in the Nashville studios of the Telos Alliance. Yeah, you can tell. Looks like a NASCAR car here. Scott Fybush is along. Scott, good to see you. And Scott is brought to you by himself at fybush.com, right?
I am. And this is probably as good an opportunity as any to mention the Tower Site calendar, which is still available in its 2023 edition. And already hard at work gathering pictures and images for 2024. And this is, I think about the date, since we're coming up on 25 years of the calendar pretty soon.
I owe two apologies. Number one, to you for not ordering it until yesterday. And number two, I ordered an apology to my wall right over here, where normally the calendar is proudly displayed. It's actually on the door to my server room is where I put it, because I go through that door frequently over to the server room. That's also where the printer is. So, you know, I'm over there quite a bit. So Scott, if people want to order that catalog, what do they do?
It is at fybush.com, and you just click on the store link there, and Lisa will get it shipped off to you in a day or two, and you will have something nice for your wall for the rest of the year.
Good deal. I did not pay extra for the signed edition, but I did order the one that comes with a coffee stain. I'm looking forward to that.
Pre-enjoyed for your pre-enjoyment.
It reminds me of, from the Dilbert comic strip, The Brown Ring of Quality.
Yes.
All right, looking forward to it. All right, so we're talking about this radio station, and we got a number of topics to get to, some a little sad as well, but things we got to face in our industry. But you were at this station, 102.7 in Cape Vincent, New York, way up there. It's part of New York that, man, I've never even looked at that place on a map. And you're if you can throw real hard, you're in a stone's throw from Canada right there.
There is
The
actually
coverage.
I haven't used it on this project, but there is a ferry. If you can bring that map back up again for a second that we had up before.
Which
Okay, we don't.
sorry.
There was if you look across, it's Wolf Island is the Canadian island that's adjacent to Cape Vincent. There's actually a ferry that runs. I don't know if it runs this time of year even at all, but it runs over to Wolf Island, and Wolf Island is actually where a lot of the transmitters are for Kingston. So when I am standing in the cornfield where the tower for this station is in Cape Vincent, I can see. There you go. You can see where Cape Vincent sits there, and then Wolf Island is that island right on the Canadian side of the border. And you take 2 hops of a ferry, and it goes right across Wolf Island, and you can stop and see all of those towers that are there. The big tower for Channel 11 in Kingston. There was a big ice storm in 1998 that destroyed that tower. It had to get rebuilt. There used to be the 2 AMs that were in Kingston were on that island, and they both moved to FM. But then there's another ferry that goes from there back over to Kingston, and in theory, that would be how I would head over to Canada from this site if I needed to, and at least so far I haven't. But it's a neat area up there, and again, in the summer, the Thousand Islands are just beautiful, and I would rather be going up there in July than on, say, March 2nd.
I was looking at the map there, Scott. We should do a live show from there. Scott will go to the transmitter side while I check out the Cape Vincent winery.
Yeah, so there's lots of wineries. There's great cheese up there.
Okay.
It's called Thousand Islands River Rat cheese. That's just delicious.
So back to the format. Stations do this thing that we call stunting. When they play something that's not going to be their format, they blow up their old format with typically something annoying and stupid. I don't know why stations do that. Why would you get rid of all of your listeners by playing, I don't know, the Batman theme over and over again for a week or whatever you may be doing? But they've decided to do something here at 102.7 that's at least interesting, and people may listen to it, a format that's not too popular, at least not in these parts. Scott, what are they doing?
So remember I said one of the co-owners is a guy named John Pole, P-O-L-E. So they are calling the station 102.7 The Pole. And it is, there's the logo. You kind of see where this is going, right? So they are playing all the sorts of music that in theory, if one were to go to such institutions, I am told would be played in gentlemen's clubs. We could maybe, I don't know, in Vegas, we can do some research on this or something, but they have, there's liners that go with this. There is allegedly an OnlyFans account that you could connect with. I'm told.
Geez. Oh my gosh.
All I did was just, plug the files into the automation. I had nothing to do with creating this. As a consultant actually named Paige Nienaber, who I think is the brainchild behind this particular thing. But this will be running, I guess, for a little bit longer. And then I literally have no idea what the actual format on this is going to be. And it's hilarious because I'm somebody who tracks all of this information, and yet in this particular corner of my existence, I'm the hired hand just making sure everything gets plugged in and turned on correctly.
Probably a lot of ZZ Top music. She's got legs. She knows how to use them, rock and roll songs that we grew up with.
I know there was Cardi B playing today when I was listening.
I'm less familiar with that music.
Reaction, like on the Watertown area Reddit page, I guess people are talking about it. So it's getting some attention for the station.
I'm sure.
I was told I was on the phone with Canada today. I was swapping some cables in and out and had us off the air for a few minutes. And they said, "Hey, our texts are blowing up. People are worried we're not on the air." I said, "Okay, good. People are paying attention to this."
That logo that Suncast just showed, I'm the junior really bad graphic designer in me says, well, why not take the decimal point and run a pole up from that, have it with an antenna at the top of it, transmitting radio waves, and have the young lady, dancing on the pole. But I'm not a graphic designer and wouldn't dare to play one. My goodness,
that would work. I like that.
Okay. All right. So, but remains to be seen what the format is actually going to be.
I literally, sometimes when people are stunting, they claim not to know. I literally do not know.
Yeah.
I will find out when they turn it on.
Well, and hey, maybe they find out that this is popular because there's plenty of songs that, might be played in a gentleman's club that, might be popular elsewhere.
I've never thought of Kingston as being that swinging a community, but you never know.
Maybe it's not at all. Oh my gosh. All right. So we've, is there anything else we want to talk about this station before we move on?
Nothing too exciting with it. It's been interesting, just educating them on some of the intricacies of U.S. operation that never occurred to them.
Yeah.
I think we still need to figure out who they're designating as the chief operator when they officially take over.
Yeah.
Little things like that, Canadian broadcasting seems in some ways so similar to what we do, and then you actually go up and you look, and all their STLs are on weird frequencies, and the EAS works differently. So
Yes.
it's
Hey, are they on their own tower there?
24/7.
Oh, that's right. Oh, they do. Yeah, that's right. Do they have their own tower, or are they on somebody else's tower?
This is, I believe, an owned tower, and there's another tenant on there. There's a public radio station. Like I said, that's the one that we're using the magic paperclip to receive because it's right there.
Hey, if we could talk for a second about EAS, because them being Canadian, they weren't aware of our monitoring requirements. They use a system that is similar to, or maybe just like our CAPS system, provided by a nationwide provider, a weather channel. What do you think about that? Could a totally internet-based, digital-based EAS system, would that be workable for the U.S.? Because I know there are some U.S. broadcasters that would far prefer that. And when you're listening to an EAS alert or a test that came in over the air and was relayed 3 times before it got to you, oh my goodness. I mean, what a tune out.
It would make so many things so much simpler. I mean, think about everything that all of us are going through right now, just getting that ETRS Form 1 filled out and then getting everything filled out immediately for Forms 2 and 3. And if the object is to figure out, can you get something received via internet, then at least in theory, the system should also be able to report right back that it was received. And maybe in the future, we don't have to deal with all of this hanging antennas in weird places, trying to pick up signals that aren't really clear enough to relay. And in the end, it seems like we're moving towards a position where CAP is always going to come first anyway.
Yeah.
And I know, I would much rather have a clean CAP delivered message. At what point do we at least initially start saying, okay, this legacy, daisy chain system is just a backup, and then maybe we don't need it anymore at all? I wouldn't mind.
I've had some thoughts about this, and maybe I'm totally off base here, but it seems to me that one of the larger broadcasting concerns in the U.S., maybe iHeart, maybe Cumulus, maybe Odyssey, maybe EMF, should petition the FCC for a waiver of the traditional EAS rules and say, hey, we want to do CAPS only, and tell you what, we'll have satellite as backup. Every market we're in, we've got satellite dishes, and we'll make an agreement with, I don't know, well, maybe not Skyview, okay, sorry, but maybe one of the providers, Premier, for example, and say, they have a channel that they'll dedicate to interrupting with a parallel message, and they'll even handle it, for regions. They'll, people can somehow submit their messages to that anyway, and show that the system can work just fine without the station to station to station relay system that is audibly so bad. I know it doesn't usually have to be, but with the quality of I don't know, it really makes me upset that we think we're depending on such an antiquated system. B, it sounds terrible. Sometimes you just can't even understand the audio that's being
coming
delivered.
in off an AM station. I was filling out an ETRS for a station in Southern Indiana. I looked at their monitoring assignments. Like, you're not really listening to WHAS AM from 90 miles away. Come on, it's got to be all electrical noise where you are. And I said, yeah, it is, but it's what's on the assignment.
Yeah.
So yeah, that, I would be okay with that going. And one that you didn't mention as far as a provider is NPR and PRSS and the Squawk channel. And pretty much every public radio station is already getting, at least the national EAS stuff off that Squawk channel. So that's another resource that's out there. And the Sirius XM too. I was talking with the other day, but somebody mentioned that they had changed in assignments that Sirius XM was now a primary. And you know what? Again, it's there. It's reliable. Sure. It's rock solid. The receivers are cheap, and away you go.
Those are all great points. And I was thinking if NPR and NPR affiliates would handle this responsibility, either as a main or a backup way to do it, there's there's kind of already a funding mechanism in place in case we said, okay, but the government should pay for, us taxpayers, we should pay for this and not put the burden on the NPR stations or on NPR. There's already kind of a funding mechanism in place that Congress could, pass the money along for the purpose of, look, you guys maintain this as well as the state maintain cap systems. Just a thought.
And especially in the states that already have statewide public radio networks that are state funded.
Sure.
A lot of them, that is already the backbone of their state emergency communication systems. And it's not just radio, DTV, and especially ATSC3. I know Pennsylvania, especially some of the folks who are involved in that ATSC3 system in Pennsylvania are using that as the backbone of their statewide emergency communications. So it not just, can be done, it is being done.
I'm thinking of a state like Mississippi, which most people, realize is typically near the bottom of the funding barrel for any topic, whether it's education or roads or whatever. But they have a statewide public radio network that I don't know how well funded it is, but it's well enough that the 100 kilowatt transmitters typically sound just fine. And it's all programmed from Jackson, Mississippi. And I'm not saying they're rolling in dough, but I am saying that it's funded well enough to work. And and in Kentucky, they don't have a statewide radio state system, but they do have a statewide television state system there, and they're all connected with microwave and it's a well enough funded system to work. And you're right, you could use ATSC3.
Yeah, North Carolina, the PBS statewide network in North Carolina, they've been a really big player now in emergency warning. And as I hop back and forth to conferences in Vegas, in addition to NUG on Sunday morning, there's a new public broadcasting conference that Skip Peasy is helping to organize with PMVG, and I think they'll be talking a lot about some of that there. So I'm very interested to see what some of the latest developments are there.
Well, I'm such a curmudgeon when it comes to our current system. I really don't care for it, and I think it's proven out every time we do a test when a large number of stations don't get it, or it's inaudible, or it doesn't work. So, all right, why don't we move on to a more pleasant topic? Actually, we're going to foreshadow what's coming up. Tell me a little bit about something about a FCC non-com filing window that closed. You had some news about this, and I know very little about it.
So this was last fall. The FCC, every few years, they'll open various windows for various applicants, and there were a lot of non-commercial broadcasters who were hoping to fill some of the last holes that were available below 92 on the spectrum, and that window opened and closed last fall. And the interesting thing, for all that we justifiably slam on the FCC for being slow about things, they have whipped through this window in near record speed. They had, as usual, you get a bunch of what are called these MX groups, where application 1 is mutually exclusive to application 2, which is then mutually exclusive to 3, and so on. And the FCC has to create these groups and sort them out with all these arcane, point system rulings and whatnot. And they have been going through these at just lightning speed, especially for Washington, to the point now where not only have construction permits been granted, some stations are actually on the air now from this window. And I think nearly everything that was mutually exclusive is at least on a pretty fast track to being sorted out, which is great compared to some of these previous windows where it dragged out sometimes for 5 or 10 years before some of these things finally got settled. So as a consultant who handles a lot of these, I am very pleased that out of the 12 applications that I had a hand in, that all 12 of them ended up being granted in the end. That was a pretty good batting average. And there are some new areas that'll be getting better community non-commercial radio service as a result of it.
Wow. Okay. All right. How did the FCC get through these MX, these mutually exclusive station groups so quickly?
I think they figured out a lot of the mistakes from previous years and have refined some systems somewhat. There have been some public comments and rulemaking notices that have helped streamline these, but I think everybody kind of understood the system a little bit better this time. They reduced a little bit. There was a cap this time. Any given applicant could only apply for 10, and so you didn't have some of these application mills that were sometimes putting out hundreds of applications that gummed up the works, that were sometimes all over the country. And the rules are pretty straightforward. You get extra points in one of these comparative, they're not really comparative hearings exactly, but in this comparative system, you get extra points for being an established applicant that's existed as a nonprofit for more than 2 years. You get points for having everything local, all your board members within a certain radius from your transmitter site. You get extra points if you're an established statewide network. And so I think everybody kind of going in knew how to play the game a little bit better. I think also a lot of the demand has been sated, as we're seeing also with some of the commercial FM auctions now. A lot of what's left are not huge facilities because we have just filled up the FM band in every corner where it can be filled up. So unless you're going, like I had one applicant that was wedging itself in, right on the outside edges of the San Diego market, and that was a little bit tight. But a lot of mine ended up just being singletons because there weren't that many people who wanted to serve one little triangle of rural Northeast PA, for instance. I had a few that were up on the border in northern Minnesota, and it all kind of went smoothly. I was pleasantly surprised. I was actually kind of hoping to be able to spend more time working with some of these clients, and in some cases, I told them, "Oh, it'll be a couple of years till a CP gets granted. You don't have to have a budget in place yet." And all of a sudden, it's, your 3-year clock is already running now. Get on it.
Wow. We are talking to Scott Fybush, and Scott's with Fybush.com. You can do several different things at that website. We'll have Scott tell you about it. And Scott has an amazing announcement a little bit later on about what he's doing in New York City. It's this coming Monday, isn't it, Scott?
It is. It is this coming Monday,
okay.
March 6th, which is actually
we'll have an announcement on that. Okay. We'll have an announcement on that coming up. Plus, we're going to talk about turning in your AM license. Sad, but true. And the station brokerage business with Scott is a member of that business, that community, does that. And he's got some interesting news about the activity level there. This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you in part by Broadcasters General Store and some of the product lines they carry, like the amazing array of helper products from Broadcast Tools. And one of them that I often talk about is the Audio Sentinel for Web. It's web-based analog silence detector. Now, the Audio Sentinel 4 Web is a web-based 4-channel or 4-channel stereo or 8 mono-channel silence monitor. All 4 stereo inputs are balanced. They feature pluggable screw terminal block and standard RJ45 audio inputs wired in parallel. So whichever way of wiring suits your standard. Each stereo input can be configured for monitoring, well, of course, audio, but also monitoring out-of-phase audio. You may get a spot sometime from an agency, heaven forfend, and it's out of phase. That still happens sometimes. I don't know how. Or the input can be configured to act as 2 separate mono channels, allowing you to monitor, a couple of AM radio stations, or if you just want to monitor, the left channel of something, you can do that if you want to get more bang for your buck. So you can monitor up to 8 different mono audio sources. It can be configured and monitored locally or remotely over any IP network, including private networks, IP-based industrial control networks, and of course, over the public internet. Users can operate this product using a desktop web browser or web-enabled mobile device. Yes, your iPhone, your Android phone can work. You don't need to download any apps from the App Store. It just works in your browser. And of course, email notification can be configured to alert up to 8 different recipients when silence or even out-of-phase audio is detected. Now, that is just one of the many, many, many things from Broadcast Tools. Their slogan at the very top of their website, Broadcast Tools, problem solved. And if you know Don Wingett of Broadcast Tools, you know that he's been designing products to help us broadcast engineers for decades now. Really designed solid gear. I've got so much Broadcast Tool stuff at my stations. And typically, actually, I have not personally installed them. My business partner, Larry Fuss, he'll order something and install it and configure it himself. And, I wouldn't consider Larry to be a real broadcast engineer, but he can put this stuff in, get the wiring done, and then the configuration done. So hats off to Don Wingett for designing products that work, that are reliable, and fit the need of what you need to do. And where do you get them? Broadcasters General Store. BGS.cc is the website, and they've revamped the website. And I love to call them because they are so good on the phone. The number's 352-622-7700. And you will literally find everything you need there at Broadcasters General Store. Scott, did I hear you almost say something? Or did I miss you?
I was looking at the product scroll by and I'm like, oh yeah, that Sage EAS update. I got to let the Canadians know about that too.
Yeah. Something, it was just in the news, BGS, Broadcasters General Store, they are now carrying a line of production music from the folks at Benstown. It's their package that's intended for Christian stations, so you don't have to be a Christian station to use this good package. It has the kind of the sound and feel that contemporary Christian stations might want to use. So anyway, the Shane Finch, Buck Waters, the whole group, Dave Kirsten, Jonathan Shute, Jessica Shute, the whole gang there. What a wonderful family and group of people to do business with. I've done business with them for literally decades. I used to sit in Sam Phillips' office in Memphis, Tennessee, and Sam would say, "Harnack, call them pretty girls over at Broadcaster General Store and order me a processor." So there you go. Thanks a lot, BGS, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, Scott Fybush is with us. Scott, let's see. What were we going to hit next? This AM licenses. What is going on? I think we kind of see this coming.
I don't want to dwell too much on this, A, because I only have limited time, and B, because it's so depressing. But yeah, we are, we're seeing an increasing number of signs that the senior band, having hit 100 years old, is showing its age, and that market circumstances are dictating the end to some signals that would have been unthinkable a few years ago. The one that a lot of people are paying attention to this week is in Las Vegas, where Odyssey had a really kind of unusual situation. They had, just a couple of years ago, acquired the other big AM in town. They already had 840 not KVGS, so it's KXNT now, which is one of the two big news talkers in the market. And they acquired the other one, 720 KDWN, from Beasley. And it was as part of this interesting deal where they are losing the land that has been under the site. Beasley had been leasing an Odyssey-owned site in North Las Vegas that, when it was built 60 years ago, was your typical outside of Las Vegas site. It was in the middle of nowhere. There was barely a road to it. It was just a bunch of towers in the desert. And lo and behold, nobody could have expected that this particular location would turn out to be right in the middle of where Amazon would end up building a whole bunch of distribution facilities. And so over the last few years, this site that literally you would have to drive over desert rocks to get to, all of a sudden it's paved roads to it, and all of a sudden it's surrounded by warehouses and highways, and all of a sudden the land underneath these towers is worth $40 million. Yeah. And when you have a couple of AM stations that are worth maybe $2 million each, and an auxiliary facility for your FMs in the market that's not the main, and you're a company like Odyssey that's not in the greatest financial shape right now and really needs cash, somebody comes to you and says, hey, here's $40 million. You pretty much say, okay, let's see how fast I can vacate this land. And so what's interesting is that in this particular case, there hasn't even been any attempt to move these AM stations. Traditionally, you would have at least seen them try to put them somewhere else, rebuild them somewhere. And it's getting to the point now where some of these, the amount of money that it costs to build something new from scratch or to put a diplex in somewhere complicated, just overwhelms the actual value of the station. And it's easier for a company that's only interested in the bottom line to say, okay, we'll just get rid of this and put it on an FM translator or what have you. And it's a sad one in particular because this has been the engineer there, Tracy Teagarden, who I think you've had on before, great guy, has developed this site over the years as what he calls the Temple of 5 Nines. And he's made this, the ultimate backup facility for his FMs in the market. Beautiful tower there with a Lambda section antenna, great coverage over the Las Vegas Valley. And, to see all that have to go away now is just absolutely heartbreaking. And a lot of that, unfortunately, it's the reality of what's happening even to some of these huge AMs. And so this huge frequency, KDWN, was 50,000 watts. up until a few years ago, and you could hear it over half the West at night. And it's just going to go away. It was actually supposed to sign off 2 nights ago, and for some reason, I guess got a little bit of a reprieve and is still on the air today, but not for much longer. It's sad. It really is, but it's also the reality of where that particular piece of the medium is headed, I think.
I realized that year and a half ago, I drove by this site on my way to taking some vacation time in Utah. And boy, there's all kinds. This was out in the middle of absolutely nowhere for the longest time. Now there's huge solar farms around it. There's a Love's truck stop just off I-15 right there, just less than a mile down the road from it. There's a lot going on and a lot being built. And if you look at a map, it looks like it's way outside Las Vegas, but no, Las Vegas is. I was surprised how far out that it's expanding out there. And it sure is. I understand why.
It's obviously the circumstances differ a lot from market to market. Something like the New Jersey Meadowlands are probably a little bit more impregnable to this. But I think, a lot of companies are going to be looking much more carefully and saying, okay, what's worth more at this point, this license or the land under it? And that never used to be a consideration for most of these sites. It's a new world we're dealing with.
Well, broadcasting has a lot of emotion attached to it. If you bought this piece of land as an investment, maybe you had a chicken farm there, whatever, and then someone wanted to buy the land for $40 million, you wouldn't care. You wouldn't be so attached to your chicken farm, but at least most people wouldn't. But broadcasting, it's in our hearts. We hate to see it go away, and it affects a lot of people. AM band, less so now. Hey, real quick, let's get to station brokerage. You are in that business. You help connect buyers and sellers, and you say that things are kind of moving along. What's up?
It is not awful, at least not for me right at the moment. Obviously the economy has slowed somewhat. A lot of the major buyers who were buyers a few years ago aren't necessarily in that position right now, but there are some who are. And I've had the pleasure in the last few months of arranging some pretty decent transactions. I work, as you know, at WXXI Public Radio here in Rochester. I've been on the air there for almost 20 years now. And our news talk format, our NPR News and Talk, has been primarily on an AM signal, which has been, again, increasingly unsustainable. They've wanted an FM. And there was one that was independently owned by a fellow in the market who was pretty much ready for retirement, has a new grandchild, had been running the thing sort of almost as a hobby during COVID. He was ready at that point, and we put that deal together. And within a couple of months, we will have a bigger signal on that and a full-time NPR News Talk FM in this for the first time. So I was really happy to be part of that. There are some other deals that I'm watching going on with smaller broadcasters. A really great family-owned broadcaster not far from me here in upstate New York. He and his wife are getting ready to retire, and they found their sales manager at the business and put together a plan for him that'll bring in retirement income for them as he makes his payments over the years. They'll be affordable for him. So it's not impossible, and it's not a terrible time if people are interested in actually getting into small market radio ownership. There are still some very viable businesses there. And the prices of stations are fairly reasonable. So it's not an impossible dream.
We're talking to Scott Fybush, longtime friend of this show and of me personally, and lots of you too. Famous for the Tower calendar that comes out every year. The 2023 is available now. You can be stupid like I was and order it 2 months late, 2 or 3 months late, but mine's on order. Should be here any day now. Looking forward to getting that package from Scott's wife, Lisa. Hey, Scott has got a really cool announcement coming up right after our last commercial break here. I can't wait for Scott himself to tell you about it. I wish I could be there at the event, but if you're within 100 miles of New York City, you're going to want to plan a trip into New York City. Hey, our show is brought to you in part by Max Connect Wireless. You know that these guys, this is Josh Bone's company, and he has made special arrangement with the major carriers, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, to get you prioritized internet data with a fixed IP address. I have used this very box, the one I'm holding right here. I have used this very box to hold my stations on the air in Mississippi after a tornado went right by our station, knocked over our STL tower, and cut some of our stations off the air and cut off our internet for about a week. I've also used this very box to keep WEVL in Memphis, Tennessee on the air It's a community radio station. And guess what? Of course, they were in the middle of their fund drive when lightning struck and took out the Comcast business grade box modem that they had there. I got it down there in a few hours, got them back on the air, and they stayed on this for about 4 days until Comcast had them going again. So this is good, not just for emergency use, but for live remote broadcasts. You get 4G LTE data, and you get it very reliably because you get a part of the data stream that almost nobody else gets. You get packet prioritized data prioritized over all those schmucks in the stadium who are doing their Facebook updates. The only people that have higher priority than you are first responders. And hopefully there's not a whole lot of action going on with them wherever you're doing a remote broadcast. So this thing works. It absolutely works. I've used it for a number of these broadcasts, most recently in Florida when the hotel Wi-Fi was just not very good, and my own hotspot and my own T-Mobile phone, it read okay, but there were lots of drop packets, even though it was in a 5G area, lots of drop packets. This held us on the air just great. Check it out, Max Connect Wireless. There's the website. You can go to Max Connect, I know it's spelled funny, .com, and read all about it. Try it out. Josh Bone will give you a good deal. And you may find a good use for it, like at your transmitter site as a backup STL. It's a good thing. Really appreciate having Josh on and the work that he did to make this service available to broadcasters. Hey, our show is also brought to you, as you know, by Angry Audio. And check this out. This is Mike Dosh's latest box. If I can hold it close to the camera here, it's the USB analog audio gizmo. You say, oh, Kirk, there's all kinds of, analog interfaces for USB. And they're fancier than this one because they've got, knobs on them. Guess what? Yes, this is a fixed audio level in and out. This is designed like no other. Seriously. I was just reading, Mike Dosh told me about this problem, and I've had this problem right here in my studio as well. But I was just reading on a Facebook forum where an engineer was saying, hey, I've got this buzz and hum and crackle whenever I connect up my USB audio interface on my computer and my speakers, and it just doesn't work well. What's causing all this? Well, it's ground loops. These things are notorious for being designed without regard to proper grounding. Well, guess what? You guessed it. Mike Dosh, designer of some of the PR&E consoles, knows what he's doing in terms of grounding and ground planes and separating grounds when they need to be separated. So this box, the USB analog audio gizmo, gives you hum-free, crackle-free audio in and out of your computer or other device that has a USB interface. And he even ships it with, of course, the USB cable that you're going to need, the USB-A to, is that B or D? I forget what that is. But anyway, what it needs. And he even includes a couple of the Studio Hub adapters, so you can plug in the Studio Hub analog audio right here on the device and come out with XLRs on the other end. You got to check this thing out at angryaudio.com. Good device, well designed. It's for broadcasters. It's for you and me. Check it out. Thanks a lot, Angry Audio, for sponsoring our show. Okay, we got to go in just a minute, but Scott Fybush has got an amazing announcement. Scott, I don't want to give anything away. You go ahead and tell us what's going on.
I got a whole shopping list I've been keeping now for my Canadian people that I got to tell them we need this. We've got to get Max Connect.
There you go. Thanks.
You've made a bunch of sales already. How do you like that? All right. So here's the big announcement. We had done a show. I think it was the last time I was on from here with you, as opposed to Vegas, talking about my sort of stand-up comedy side hustle, as it were, that my wife Lisa and I both do. And we've kept it going. We survived through COVID. We started putting on shows on our deck in the backyard, which became kind of a long-running series called Comedy on Deck, which will resume when the weather gets nice here again. But in the process, I've actually had the opportunity now to do a little bit of traveling and to meet some comics in other cities. And so the really cool, really fun part is that a friend of mine who does comedy in New York City actually invited me to be on a show that he is doing. And so this coming Monday, March 6th, at the Greenwich Village Comedy Club on McDougal Street in New York City. I will be part of the 7:30 p.m. comedy show there. There's my name. There I am right there. So I will be doing some of my stand-up for an audience in New York. It's going to be, I've done some open mics there, so I've got some New York-specific material. My daughter goes to college there, and she has unwittingly been a source of material for me, much to her chagrin and dismay. I steal shamelessly from family stories for my comedy. Lisa's a little classier than that, and doesn't so much. But yeah, I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to doing this, and hopefully this will not be the last time that I get to be on stage doing comedy in New York. I get to do some radio bits. I have a whole bit that I've been doing about the public radio voice and all of the things that you can do with the public radio voice that you can't necessarily use on the air when you're on public radio.
I just saw a comic today. It looked like a New Yorker style single pane sketch, and it was a couple, and they were in bed, and they were both laying there, and she was saying, you know, next time we make love, could you not use your podcast voice?
Yeah, exactly. In the public,
I don't know what to make of that, but
installation of that is. I'm hoping at some point. I did a bit. It's all. See, everything ties together somehow, right? So I'm a member of the National Association of Media Brokers, which meets during the NAB show. We have a very secret, very early morning meeting somewhere deep in the bowels of an unnamed hotel that may or may not be the Encore. And they actually asked me to do a comedy set as part of the meeting last year. And I'm like, okay, I may be the funniest person on stage in Las Vegas at 8:15 on a Tuesday morning.
I love it. That's great.
You never know.
Oh my gosh.
You can never guarantee that.
Oh my goodness.
At least I had that chance for a moment, and I got some laughs, so it was good.
Good deal. Well, we'll put a link in the show notes. And if you're in the New York City area, Greenwich Village, check out Scott Fybush along with a bunch of other people. If you need comedy therapy, and by the way, my own sister has been doing improv comedy here in Nashville. Mm-hmm. And I've attended probably 4 of her shows now, and I'm really enjoying it. So anyway, good. All right, Scott, thank you for being with us. I really appreciate you taking time out and sharing all this information with us. It's good. I'll see you in Las Vegas.
Always fun. Yes, I will see you in Vegas.
About 6 weeks away, huh?
Yes, getting closer and closer.
All right. Well, if you're viewing, I wish you'd find Scott, say hi, let us know you watch or listen to the show, and of course, patronize our advertisers. I want to thank Scott Fybush for being with us, and also thank you to Suncast, our producer, for being so quick with the graphics and making it all flow smoothly. Really appreciate that, Suncast. And we got to go. We will see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye, everybody.